Hello everyone. So today we have with us Mr. Saurabh Bajaj. He spent about 20 years of his life in marketing and has managed about 700 crores worth of business marketing operations and is currently the marketing head of a very big FMCG giant in India and has recently been a part of a marketing and branding team of a 100 crore brand of this company. And so it's my pleasure to welcome you on the pod today, Mr. Saurabh, and very much excited to be uncovering a lot of branding and marketing ideas and the roadmaps to go about doing it from you today.
Yeah, so I think branding has been pretty interesting from what I've observed, right? I started with my career from Cadbury Celebrations. I also worked as the activation manager for Dairy Milk. I've worked on Cadbury Gems. And then, when I joined alcohol, I realized that there's a very different world on how branding happens through surrogates in the world of alcohol. I was the innovation head for premium and luxury spirits. And then when I moved on to Britannia, I did my first role for a couple of years as the marketing head for international business, which was again very, very exciting because, how do you move a well-known brand in India to an international market like, say, Nepal or Dubai? So that was something which is again very new for me. And then, of course, for the last 3 years, I've been managing the mandate for Britannia's dairy portfolio, where we have Britannia Cheese and Britannia Winking Cow, which have been the brands that I've been focusing on.
Yeah, so Saurabh, can you go deeper about how do you expand it to geographies like Nepal? I've seen brands like Renate doing the same. They've expanded to Nepal and they're also expanding internationally. So, how does the communication while if you when you move that differs from India? Is it how do you adapt to the local language?
Sure. See, branding at its core, is about really what the brand stands for. Yeah. And there is a particular brand core. This brand core is, uncovered by a very simple tool that, we would have all studied in our colleges called the brand ladder. Yeah. So all brands at their core have their attributes. So, for example, if you were to see, vodka, yeah, vodka is a odorless, colorless, tasteless liquid. Yeah. Similarly, if you see dairy milk is, a fine quality chocolate made with the goodness of milk. Yeah, so all brands have certain common attributes. These attributes move up to a functional benefit. So, if you have a biscuit, it typically makes you feel a little satiated, makes you feel a little full. If you have a chocolate, it really is like a treat for your taste buds, it really indulges you. If you have alcohol, it can obviously, give you a high. Now, from these functional benefits, till that this point, attributes to functional benefits, most brands are very consistent. The difference of branding essentially comes when you ladder upwards from the functional benefit to the emotional benefit. See, the functional benefit or the attribute is really about what a brand is, while an emotional benefit is really about why should the consumer be interested in the brand, why should the consumer buy the brand, right? And why should a consumer buy a brand could have subtle differences across markets. Yeah. Now, where it comes to, even something like vodka, in an Indian scene, it is a great way of driving penetration among women, say, party occasion. Versus a vodka in America might have a narrative of cocktails, because cocktails are very famous there. So till the time it's about the product, you have a very similar story because, it uses the product codes. But the emotional benefit can be different basis the cultural context of those markets. Yeah. And for example, some of the work that I had observed in Britannia itself was the fact that, Good Day stands for smiles and for happiness. But happiness in the Indian context in the past was about insularity, the fact that, the Deepika Padukone commercial of smiles. About, because our culture was not such that we, smile at everybody or talk to everybody. Now that may not be the case in a Nepal or in a Dubai. People might be a lot more interactive. But in the case of Dubai, it could be about the fact that, most of the people that we are talking to are expats. You have Indians, you have Filipinos, you got Pakistanis living in a foreign land. So their happiness can be about togetherness. Or in the case of a Nepal, where they really care about doing good for society, for welfare, for charity. Their smiles could be about helping an old person cross the road. So the same brand core, a same attribute, same functional benefit, but you nestle it into a slightly different emotional benefit based on the context of the country or the market that you are in.
So how do you get to know about, for example, Nepal is about charity and Dubai is about bringing togetherness? Do you talk to your users?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, what is done is, through a workshop. There's a workshop which I had learned many, many years back in my time at Mondelez. Yeah, which is a common version of it is done across companies in different ways. Now, essentially, what you do is you first align on a business problem.
Mhm.
From the business problem, a marketing problem emerges. From the marketing problem comes to a specific brand issue or challenge. Yeah. Once you've aligned as to what you're solving for, what's the brand challenge that you're
Mhm.
solving for, then you kick off a workshop, and the workshop is really about deeply understanding your consumer. So in this workshop, you essentially divide. You get
Mhm.
yourself into the room. You have, your agency partners. You can have people from the R&D team. You can have people from the sales team, and you make a group of say around 10 people. You go out there and meet a large number of consumers. You do a lot of research online. You look at all the past reports. From this, you observe a lot of information. These observations you put in the form of chits in pieces of paper, and you put them onto the conference wall. Now, each of the participants is expected to bring at least 50 observations, which are clean observations of what they have observed about the consumer happening. As you put this onto the wall, it is almost as if you're standing inside the mind of the consumer, because you are able to see all of the stuff about the consumer that you have observed from various sources. Then is the job of clustering. So you start making clusters of those observations, 25, 30 observations each team picks up, which looks similar. And then you have the inciting process, which is really about asking the 5 whys. You ask, why am I seeing this behavior? What's at the bottom of it? When you ask when you ask a simple question 5 times, when you ask a why 5 times, you tend to reach at a very universal insight, which is really the deep, insightful understanding of the consumer. From this understanding, essentially your insight observes, and you get an idea about what's really going on in that cultural context. What have you guys observed? How is that impacting reality and the consumer behavior, and hence how is it that is genuine tension that you can sit on top of.
Mhm. So can you please share an incident, like for an example, for example, there's an insight that people wanted to be together with people of different culture, and then you brought these insights into a culture cluster, and then what are the 5 whys that you mentioned about that you ask to your consumers, that you ask to yourself to arrive at the deepest insight?
So let me share this with a different example. Let me share this with the example of when I was handling Cadbury celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was handling Cadbury celebrations back in 2008,
Okay.
yeah, we realized then that the brand was not growing and there was a genuine challenge in the market. And really the business opportunity that we had was, how do we grow the brand by addressing aware non-purchasers? The business problem was that there are a lot of people who are aware of celebrations, Cadbury celebrations, but they just didn't buy it this Diwali. And when we would ask consumers, why didn't you buy it? Like, do you think it's not a great gift? Do you think that chocolates in a gift pack is not relevant for Diwali? And they said, no, it's fine, it's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. So then we would say, why didn't you buy it this Diwali? So they were like, we just didn't think about it. Okay. So then my director marketing at that time, he gave a vision saying that how can Cadbury celebrations own the spirit of Diwali, much like Coca-Cola owns the spirit of Christmas in the US. I mean, it is intriguing that the Santa Claus character has actually been created by Coca-Cola in one of their campaigns. The jolly man in red, that is actually a character created by Coca-Cola in one of their iconic Christmas campaigns. So we said, how do we own the spirit of Diwali? And to this we said, let's not go only to Bombay, Delhi. Let's also go to small towns. So we went to Bareilly, we went to Rajkot. And we were fascinated in this workshop, and we observed that in Bombay and Delhi, even those people in a society which are the life of the party are the guys who are really busy on a day-to-day life. When it comes to a Diwali or a Rakhi, they get people together, they organize a party, everybody has a good time, but they are otherwise very busy in their day-to-day lives. It's more about celebrating the occasion rather than something deeper. But when we went to Bareilly, what we found was really amazing, and I still get goosebumps when I think about that moment where I met this consumer, and he says that what sort of We have been living on the first floor. It is a duplex. We've been living on the first floor for the last 7 years, and below lives a landlord. And both the landlord and my sons go to school together. And everybody in school thinks that they are brothers. Nobody knows that they're not brothers. So that kind of social glue, that kind of warmth, right, in society is not there in the metros. And we realize that, even when it comes to Diwali, which is a time to celebrate with the near and dear ones, we just, make a phone call, we just buy a gift and we send it. Is very transactional. That, the genuine love is not there. And which is where we came up with this concept of, to is Diwali aap kise khush karoge? Whom will you genuinely make happy? Yeah. And because we are able to find an insight which is so powerful in the heart of the festival itself, yeah, it really increased the consideration for celebrations, and celebrations, which is otherwise just an assorted pack of chocolates, became in the consumer's mind a really thoughtful gift. And that is what helped us meet a business objective of, solving this challenge and, overcoming this problem with aware non-purchasers, where if you think about Diwali, you have to think about Cadbury celebrations because the, campaign was so powerful.
So I think that mostly in the Indian society, what I have observed that movies with family genre does better on the box office rather than love or romance these days. Like Dharma has owned that art. So do you think that moving people emotionally does the job?
See, there are these a couple of stuff about brands which I've understood as I've been through my career the last 18 years. And the first thing that I've understood is that consumers don't really care about our brands. A consumer does not know one brand from the other. Consumer does not know, how is a close-up really different from a Colgate. They don't really care. A consumer does not know the difference between a Axe or a Fog. A consumer does not know the difference between a Lux or a Rexona. And the consumer won't even know what's lying in their own bathroom or their kitchen or their, dining table. But as brands understand consumers, right? As brands understand consumers, they are able to hook onto platforms which the consumer resonates with. And in that moment of truth, when the consumer is going to pick up a product, the consumer subconsciously picks up a brand which has understood the consumer better. Yeah. And that is the reason why a consumer is moved not by brand features or attributes. A consumer is moved by how that brand makes the consumer feel, and hence by emotion, which is the reason why emotion is finally at the core of all brand building.
Yes, definitely. So I believe like the market share that Fog has today as compared to other competitors is because the messaging that it has to its core, like no gas cylinder wala perfume. So I think that people miss on to that messaging. Mostly what I've seen that people for copies what other brands in the category are doing and not try to really differentiate and deep down into what the customer really wants from their life. I think if we go deep down into their emotional pain points, then I think that may connect with us better with the consumer.
So there are a couple of things, so there is brand building and then there is advertising, but there is also innovation, right? And innovation is again spectacular because a lot of way of building a strong brand franchise is by the right innovation strategy. And I would attribute the success of Fog really to the innovation strategy rather than the communication approach. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at most categories, there will be two ends to it. One example that we are all aware of is Kurkure. So at one end you have Indian salted snacks like a moong dal, or a khakra, right, or a chakli. And the other end you have Western salted snacks like chips, right? What Kurkure did is put an Indian traditional snack inside the packet of a Western snack. Yeah, that is the reason why Kurkure was such a hit, because you get the same feeling as if you are having a chivda, but you are actually having something in a Western packet. Similarly, if you look at the perfumes category, at one end you have these high-end perfumes of Burberry or a Hugo Boss, which are say 5,000 rupees upwards, and most perfumes, almost the starting point of any perfume is around 2,000 rupees at a minimum. Yeah. On the other hand, you got the deodorants category where the highest point is 500 rupees. An average deodorant will be 100, 150, 125 rupees. Yeah. So what Fog did spectacularly well is that they took a perfume which is liquid and it put it inside a deodorant bottle. The reason why this concept of Fog works so well is because all this while, because deodorants were cheap and perfumes were expensive, the only people giving fragrance in the liquid form was perfume. And moment you put a perfume inside a deodorant bottle, it suddenly becomes so much more value for money, and it becomes something which is far more expensive, which is where existing players like Axe would have been completely devastated, because this would destroy their bottom line and their gross margins. Yeah. And hence the reason why Fog won is by a deep understanding of the category and doing an innovation which is simply so breakthrough that it got them market leadership. It is also a little similar to what 5 years back OnePlus did, when OnePlus came up with their campaign of Never Settle. Essentially what they were saying is that you can buy an iPhone for $75,000. We will give you all those features and more at 35,000. Yeah. So when you have a product superiority and you're able to offer it as a breakthrough price point and still figure out how to make margins and money, you can obviously shift the market very much in your direction.
Oh, that's a great insight that I noted today. So how do you think that brands like a Britannia or any Cadbury builds customer loyalty in their offline channels, because they are not hardcore D2C, they are more focused upon offline retail, like they have this huge distribution network. So how do they build such great customer loyalty?
So the way that most established brands are able to build a sense of loyalty, right, it just goes back to the fundamentals of marketing, right, which is the fact that one, they create a large amount of saliency and high amount of top of mind. And the reason why they have a large amount of saliency and large amount of top of mind is because they are very clear about their brand assets. So for example, the purple color in a Dairy Milk, right, the visi-coolers which you have in store, right, the mark of a Cadbury, the way the C is written. Now all these are very strong assets. When the consumer constantly is bombarded by the same assets in every touch point, it builds memory structures, builds top of mind. And salience is the first reason why brands like Mondelez or Cadbury's or even a Johnny Walker are able to build so much of loyalty. The second reason why they build loyalty is because of a consistent performance in their product. Yeah, most of these brands do blindfold tests, or they do some kind of a product benchmarking versus competition on an ongoing basis, and they are constantly clear that they have a preference at a head-to-head, at a blind level on their product versus competition. So that kind of a seamless, high-quality product is the second reason why they build loyalty. The third reason why they build loyalty is because, with their customers, we say the retailers or with the chains, they have a consistent terms of trade. They are able to ensure that the kind of velocity of sale and the kind of margins which they can give is something which is typically unsurpassed, because not any other brand can give higher margin, but not every brand can give them the same velocity. And finally, they solve for the requirements of the channel by their customers as well, by also educating them on an 6 monthly or an annual basis in terms of what are the new trends, what are the new innovations coming in. They keep a channel of communication open, and that allows the customer as well to recommend some of these behemoths.
Got it. So how do you recommend a D2C brand who's just starting up, who's figured out the product, to go about brand building?
So now there are multiple ways in which a D2C brand can work. Yeah. The first thing that you see a lot of D2C brands doing is that they are masters of social listening, and they know what's in trend. They know what are the conversations already happening. And some of the social listening and consumer inciting through data leads them in building the right innovation strategy. I think the work that Wow Cosmetics did with apple cider vinegar, and how that became one of their mainstays was because they had already realized that there is a lot of consumer conversation happening around that kind of a formulation. So one is to use data to give you the right insights to do your product innovation strategy, because even in the 4 P's of marketing, product obviously comes first. The second thing which I think D2C brands do extremely well is that they use performance marketing, and they use retargeting very effectively. So once they have a core group of consumers that has been built basis a right innovation or by the right product right out there, they are able to constantly retarget the same consumer even before they start building their brand. Even before they do hardcore brand building, they are able to build a kind of a loyal cohort of consumers. The third thing which I've seen, D2C brands doing extremely well is that, very ahead of the curve, they're able to build a very sharp brand persona, and they're able to build a very sharp, design language or the design assets. You will find far more consistency in packaging in, say, even a Man company or a Bombay shaving company, even if you were to compare them versus the conventional personal care players like a Dove or a Gillette or a L'Oreal, because they know that they do not have those dollars to really proliferate their design language. And I think this is the consistency of their design assets which does the third part of the job. And the fourth part of the job, which I've seen a lot of brands doing very early on the journey, which took conventional marketers a lot more time to do, is to really work on brand purpose. So if you see the way Mama Earth talks about, being natural, saving the environment, or a purpose-led brand building that builds affinity, I think it is something that took conventional brands much longer time to come, while the D2C brands have really, hop, skipped and jumped and landed to the core of brand building really quickly.
Got it. So after that, how do you see about ATL versus BTL today?
So I think both have got their own roles to play. I think both ATN and BTL are important. Both have their roles to play. But what I feel is an even more important conversation is that of gross margins versus advertising or activation. And I think that is the bigger game to crack. This is really interesting, the fact that, all products that you see in the market, they're essentially a combination of functional benefits and emotional benefits. Now, the more basic the product is, when it comes to namak, right, salt or atta, right, these are the products which are largely functional in nature. Very little emotional brand building needs to be done, because there is very little value addition on which to, add emotional cues. While on the other hand, if you have something like perfumes, it is entirely emotional. There is very little functional product, right? And hence, when it comes to something called the gross margin is essentially net sales value minus your cost of goods sold. Your gross margins for atta dal chawal will be as low as 10%. For products like biscuits will be around 20%. For products like dairy, it will be around 30%. For things like chocolate, will be around 40%. When it comes to personal care, it will be around 50%. When it comes to things like I said, cosmetics will be now in the zone of 60, 70, and 80%. It just shows the continuum from, largely functional benefits and largely needs at one end, and largely emotional benefits and wants at the other end. And moment you are in categories which are largely wants driven and emotion driven, you have to invest all that money in advertising. While on the left, when it comes to functional benefits, you have to invest all that money in product quality, with very little advertising really required. And this is what helps companies or new entrepreneurs decide their gross margin benchmarks, because you have to finally decide what category are you playing in. And this, discussion essentially segues into your pricing strategy, because the higher the price that you need to charge, or the higher the gross margin you need to command, the higher the brand building that you require to do. And hence this becomes the most important question for an early stage entrepreneur to also think about.
Yes, definitely. And also, do you think that products which raises people's status, have proven to command higher gross margins, like Beats earphone, headphone, which is priced at very premium. So people wear it because it's not a functional benefit that's attached to it. It's more on the emotional benefit that people want to get from that product.
See, I'll tell you, things which enhance status definitely can charge a premium, right? But see, the important thing to understand is that the consumer is not a fool, yeah? And it's only if you have a technological edge, where how slight the difference might be, but unless the difference is not there, the consumer cannot really charge that premium. Now, even if you come back to, very simple product categories like chocolate, yeah, there is a clear product appreciation difference between a Cadbury Dairy Milk Silk versus a regular Cadbury's. If you have a regular Cadbury and you have a Silk, there is a clear product differentiation. And that product differentiation is what is enabling them to charge a disproportionate premium. So hence, even when it comes to something like a Bose, that sound quality is unmatchable. I mean, you cannot get that with a regular piece of equipment. And hence, in the 4 P's of marketing, it always starts with the product. And hence, unless you have a product which can demand or command that kind of a premium, it's not possible to just, command the premium on the basis of advertising or brand building.
Do you think that product innovation which customers prefer, for example, like the product quality, so the customer the brand can charge well as if they are advertising the product well enough?
So at the heart of everything is the product. If you deeply understand the product, you understand what makes it tick, you understand what's the source of differentiation, you can understand why this is superior to others, you can obviously charge, whatever premium you desire. But you cannot. But there is this old statement which goes by the name of by the line that there is nothing that kills a bad product faster than good marketing. Because you can do a lot of good marketing to initiate a lot of trials, but if you have a bad product, it's not going to take off. So you have to first solve for a very, very high quality product, and if you have a superior product, you have something better. It's almost said that the world will beat their way to your door, and they will and find you, and as long as you got the product sorted first. So first you have to fix the product, and of course, good marketing, the remaining piece of marketing can ensure that you're able to make that business a reality because you're sitting on the top of a strong foundation.
Yes. So this is something that I've heard Shashank Mehta of the Whole Truth Foods talk about, that invest all of your money in product first and then to think about marketing.
That's right.
So I just want to ask you about, do you feel like there's a service gap unlike a product for example, there's a service gap in an industry. So do you think that similar to a service gap, there's a brand gap also for products that have some they are good quality product, pricing is right, but there is the brand play that can be done to enhance that, and how do you create the trigger? There is also a trigger with that product. So can you please talk about it?
There have been multiple battles that you will see through the years, right, where there has been a clash or a challenge between two different technologies, and one of the players which sort of wins that battle then eventually tends to become the market norm, whether it is, say, Google versus Bing, that can be seen in the light of, say, a brand battle, okay, or you can see how the various parts of technology, say the MS Windows, right, or the Android ecosystem, how most of these battles have been won is the fact that one of the two competing technologies then tends to become the market norm. It's what led to the demise of CDMA versus GSM. Right. So hence you might have a strong product, but unless you are able to communicate that, build the right ecosystem behind it, and even when it comes to technology, if you see the example of Intel, How did Intel rule the microprocessors world? Is saying that, in a technology product, I don't need to create a brand, right? Why do you need to have a brand for a processor that goes inside a laptop, right? But Intel said that, I'm intensely replicable. Anybody else can take my market away from me unless I'm able to drive affinity with the consumer itself. And that's the power of brand building, because not only did they have a good product, they were able to make it into a differentiator that the consumer would value, and hence you will have multiple brands of computers and CPUs which will say Intel inside outside on the pack. They don't need to do that, but they do that because it's the right brand building approach which has enabled them to charge the premium and not become just something that anybody else can replicate. So I would say that, while brand building has a role in driving preference and giving you what is worth, but brand building also has a role in ensuring that you do not become obsolete and not taken over by somebody else just because you are a commodity.
Got it. And what do you think about triggers and currencies about a brand? For example, a Cheerios or what do you say, like a Coca-Cola? What are the triggers that people buy into a Coca-Cola, and what is their currency, social currency? Sorry.
Like I said, if we go back to the very simple logic of a brand ladder, right? It all starts from what's my product attribute, how do I move to my functional benefit, and then what is the position that I own. Yeah. Now, what is interesting about brand building is when you have brands which have got absolutely the same attributes and functional benefit. Yeah, and that's where brand building becomes challenging. For example, if you were to see a Coke versus a Pepsi, fundamentally there is very little difference between the two products. Yeah, so how do they, create that social currency, or how do they create the differentiation? They do it through positioning, and they do it through positioning by finding a positioning need state, which is usually the opposite of the incumbent. So if a Coca-Cola keeps saying that, I'm the real thing, I'm the classic, that's a great opportunity for Pepsi to say, okay, what is the space you are leaving for me? And the space that Coca-Cola leaves when it says, I am the classic, is that Pepsi can say, okay, then I must be the choice of the new generation, which is the opposite of a classic. Yeah. Similarly, if a Domino's says that, I give you convenience because I can give you home delivery very quickly, right? Then you can get a Pizza Hut to say that, forget about convenience. If you want to eat like a king, you please come into my store and I'll give you those delicious deep dish pizzas, right? So two very similar products, but absolutely complementary, emotional benefits, and hence a very differentiated currency. Now because a Domino's is so known for their delivery, if you had to have a choice to sit with your family and eat a pizza in a mall, you'll typically go to a Pizza Hut store, even if you usually order Domino's at home. Because they own that niche, they own that market, they own the positioning of a place which is a great place for a family meal. And hence, as brands move up, you have to first see your positioning landscape of, what are the brands around you and what is the easiest space that you have, which you can make very large and you can build your, emotional currency around.
Definitely. So right now, with the battle of grocery delivery that we are seeing it, some brands position it differently, like from each other, like a Dunzo or a Zepto or a Swiggy. I think it's mostly about the game of positioning, how you position the brand, because the products are similar.
Yeah, in fact, I had recently written a post on LinkedIn where I try to examine and analyze that when the products are the same, how do different positionings happen in the world of online services, right? Because when it comes to a physical product, you still have at least something which is solid to, put your foot on. And what I realized when I did that analysis is to find that, there are these 4 positioning opportunities for online services, right? And the first such positioning opportunity for online services is the pioneer. Now, the pioneer is for example, a make my trip. I make my trip by the virtue of the name itself, right? It says, if you want to make your trip online, I will teach you how to do it. Yeah, and that's what they essentially do well. Yeah. Similarly, you will have a car dekho, right? Or you would have a Naukri.com, right? Or you would have a Bharat Matrimony. In many of the cases, these are the brands which have been the pioneer. Bharat Matrimony has taught us how to, in a semi-traditional manner, do shadi, shopping online. And then the second positioning opportunity which is there for online services is somebody who really makes it easy, and when it comes to making it easy, for example, for me is that of Clear Trip. It says, Make My Trip might have opened up the space, but you know what? That website is confusing. If you go to a website, there are so many words there, the taxes come later, and so on and so forth. Clear Trip says, you see is what you get and make it very simple for you. Similarly, you have online brands like Cars 24, which will have a relatively easier navigation tool, saying that again, I'm on the clarity premise. I can give you what you are looking for. The third space of online differentiation or positioning is really the innovator. And the innovator for me in the job search market was, for example, the Monster.com. When Monster came in, they came in with those innovative pieces of advertising, and they were not the pioneers, but they really positioned themselves as something slightly different. Yeah. Again, the role of the innovator is played by, Acco Insurance. While you have a lot of other insurance players online which are more traditional, and Acco says, I play by the rules of the online marketplace. So they have a very different positioning. And finally, the fourth kind of positioning space that I have been able to observe, online is really like. Is somebody who's providing international premium convenience, which is, say, the role that an Amazon has played, right? A Flipkart might have been the pioneer, but an Amazon provides the assurance of international service, right? And OLX did that. Or Uber, an Uber versus an Ola always feels that they have a slightly more seamless user experience because they come across as somebody who's a little more international, who's got the whole comfort related with the usage sorted out much better. So hence I would say, much like there is brand building in the physical world, there is also brand building which happens in the online world, and you have to really decide what is that one thing that you want to stand for. And as long as you can find a distinct and meaningful proposition for the consumer which differentiates you from others, and it is something the consumer values, there is an opportunity to brand build even through your service.
Great. So I wanted to ask you about what do you think why CRED has been able to create viral advertisements again and again? What is there? How do you look about it?
So there are multiple phases in the life of a brand, yeah, and there are also various people whom you are talking to. Not all brand building is done only for the consumer. Okay, there is brand building for the consumer, there is brand building for investors, there is brand building for employees, there is brand building for customers. There are all reasons for brand building, and they don't all necessarily have to be only for the consumer. Second, a lot of brand building happens at various phases. So there is a time when your product may not fully be ready even. So you don't even know whether this is my end state product, and then you do not want to put all your money on what my product attribute is. It could also be eventually just about awareness and fame. Yeah. And eventually, as your product matures, then you might want to talk about its functional benefits, and then eventually is landing its emotional delivery. Yeah. See, what we don't know about CRED is the fact that, they have modeled on something which has really succeeded like gangbusters internationally. And because of that, they are in a fairly safe place. Their investors are in a safe place to say that if this takes off, there is a lot of money to be made. and hence basis the phase of their brand building journey that they are in right now. What they're looking for is fame. They're looking to reassure their investors that what, we are here to stay and they are here to cut clutter. And if you were to look at their advertising through the light of what is potentially their business or their brand objectives, you will then realize that it is not general madness that's going on. What is being done is a really clear thought through strategy basis their business task.
So there's one thing that Kunal Shah mentioned about that Rahul Dravid was someone that the younger generation and also the older generation know about their their viral campaigns. So this is how they connected with both of the audiences using that one celebrity. And I'm sure that you would have seen any celebrity advertisements in your career. So can you please elaborate a bit about how does the celebrity advertisement works in big brands?
So when it comes to celebrity advertising, right? Forget celebrity advertising. Any brand, right? Any ad, the right way of measuring how good that ad is by looking at the ratio between branded cut through versus the creative reach. Yeah. See, a celebrity ad or many other ads is able to give you a lot of reach. A lot of people might say, I remember seeing this ad. But you can recall the brand, correct? The ratio between the branded creative reach and the total creative reach is called a branded cut through. Yeah. And for a good ad, you need at least a 70% branded cut through. Now, only and only if the brand link to the celebrity is rational, logical, yeah, and it is adding to what that brand wants to position itself as, only then that celebrity connection actually works. Yeah. If you were to try to say which is that, undergarments ad that Salman Khan has worked on or Amir Khan has worked on, you'll be confused. You'll never be able to remember it even. When you can't remember which is the celebrity endorsing that vest, then why are they using the celebrity? Versus, if you say, what is the brand that comes to mind when you say Amitabh Bachchan? For most people, even after the last 16 years, it will still be Dairy Milk. And Dairy Milk used Amitabh Bachchan only in 2003, 2004 for only like 2 years. Then didn't use him ever after. The brand and the celebrity association was so strong that even many years later, the connection is still there. Yeah, which is why whenever a brand chooses a celebrity, they have to decide how strongly the celebrity's values correlate with the values of that brand.
Here's some great piece of advice that you shared about brand cut through, about getting that creative reach and branded reach. So go deeper on branded reach. Is it about the reach of the campaign or about here?
So impressions is typically a creative reach. That is how many people recall creative. Branded creative reach is branded cut through is how many percentage of people who remember seeing the ad remembered the right brand which that ad was associated with when you show them a unbranded frame.
Okay.
Yeah. And if that is very strong, then without showing the brand, people should be able to correlate and say that this creative belongs to this brand.
Got it.
So I mean, and also some of that build branded creative reaches, for example, the mnemonics. Now, for example, if you were to see any ad which has got kid adults in it, like little kids acting like adults, it's a Flipkart ad.
Yeah.
If you see any ad which had Zuzus in it, you will say it's a Vodafone ad. Because you're able to bring some very strong assets, creative assets, which remind you of the brand.
Yeah. That's an amazing point that I just noticed. And after that, there's one thing that I heard from Shashank Mehta in one of his podcasts that while his time at HUL, he found out legacy brands which have been there for about 100 years is built on insights. So about his brand, the Whole Truth Foods. So the thing that he does. So, do you think that how what are the other aspects that takes a brand to 100 years legacy, like Coca-Cola?
What is really important for the longevity of a brand is for that brand to be honest. Yeah. And
Mhm,
the fact is, a lot of, see, like people, nobody is ever going to be completely gaga about a particular brand or a product, and there will be ups and downs. There'll be a time when a McDonald's came to India and, everybody wanted to go into a McDonald's because there was no McDonald's before. And then
mhm,
there was a time when a McDonald's suddenly became something that I'm not going to go to because, I mean, they just sell those cheap 25 rupee burgers. Yeah.
mhm, mhm,
There are various phases which a brand goes through. But the truly successful brands are able to reinvent themselves. I am really quite a fan of the way McDonald's have reinvented themselves now in their recent avatar, where they said, you know what, the world is moving towards things which are healthy. We cannot still have the same proposition that we had in the 60s. And now with the addition of the Mac Cafe, where you can also get a chocolate drink or coffee, the
mhm.
addition the chicken legs onto their menu because they saw they were losing a lot of business to a KFC. I think McDonald's have done a good job of saying that our core promise remains the same, which is we are here for affordable family meals, but let us change our offering. Let us change the way we look and feel in line with the evolving consumer reality. Same thing with the Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola
Mhm,
till the 1990s would get 95% of the business only from aerated beverages. It's already down to 70
mhm,
now. Today, 70% of Coke's business only comes from aerated beverages, and 30% of the business comes from other products. And they have forecasted that in the next 10 years, it'll probably go down to 50%. So, while the brand will stay, but their offerings will evolve in line with the reality of the consumer. Now, already you will notice that Coke is selling a very large part of their business in recent years from zero sugar beverages or sugar substitute low calorie beverages, and it's a Coke but still being sold with those products because they want to remain in touch with the changing consumer reality.
right. And there's this that I was very curious to know about Starbucks. How did they disrupt it, like the coffee market? There's a book about the founder from the founder itself, but what do you think that Starbucks was able to command sizes? Uh, it's mostly about the experience and people a different experience when they like when they hold that into the consumers today.
See, I think a lot of this is about understanding what is your business. See,
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks is not in the business of selling coffee. Neither is McDonald's in the business of selling burgers, right? A lot of products or services offer a particular product, but that's not what their real business is. They have to dive a little deeper and say, what is my real differentiator? And it was very well articulated by McDonald's at one point in time, where they said, we're not in the business of selling burgers. Anybody can make better burgers than us. We are in the business of real estate. We offer you, our stores at the most premium locations. We own that real estate. And our empire is really founded by offering great opportunities for the consumers to socialize in the best parts of the country. Yeah. So I think some of these tricks about understanding what is the real role that you solve in the consumer's life, as long as you understand that, you're able to build a strategy around it, you're able to invest and harness that and continue to polish that part of your value chain. I think that's what makes the real difference.
Great, great. So, coming to the last segment of this podcast, Saurabh, what advice do you recommend? Would you give to budding entrepreneurs or brand or anyone who's about the branding space? How do they go about learning? I mean,
So, I would say that one, there is a lot of literature out there. which one can pick up. And one of the books that I would recommend to entrepreneurs in these days is a book called How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. It's a book very different from the Kotlers that we studied, in the sense that it is very practical, is very logical, is very straightforward. I think How Brands Grow is a great piece of literature. I myself create a lot of content. I don't know whether you have had a chance to see my LinkedIn profile. I have some 35,000 followers now. I create a lot of meaningful content for entrepreneurs and marketeers. I offer at least one article every Saturday. I've also written some 40 plus articles on various aspects of brand building, and I'm in the midst of finalizing my publisher for a book that I've written called The Practical Marketeer, which is essentially a practitioner's guide to marketing. So if any entrepreneur really wants to understand how marketing happens in a very simple language, step by step manner, and it is more action rather than theory. It's not about what marketing is, but really how marketing is done. I think that will be a wonderful book for them all to refer to. Yeah. And then lastly, I would say that there are some lovely books by Al Rice and Jack Trout, some of the classics of marketing. I think that's another some amount of good theory to get your hands around.
And also, where is this book going to be available? Is it through your website?
Amazon, can you please elaborate a bit about
the
the
channels that you're gonna sell?
No, it will take me some time. Frankly speaking, I'm having some serious discussions with a couple of publishers, and once I'm able to finalize the publisher, and some of this stuff can take time. But if you have some good publishers, hearing this podcast, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to find a partner to publish it.
Oh, great! And so, I would for people like you to conduct a masterclass of your channel on or LinkedIn. Pay and learn from you guys, because our best operators like you in their respective domains, and this is something that I really look at learning from. And also there's a channel that Saurabh regularly posts videos on marketing. It's called Icon Behind Brands. Do check it out. It's a very great piece CMOs.
Absolutely. In fact, there are these two podcasts. One is called Bulang Future on Mensa, which I put on every Sunday at 12:30, and then of course there is Icon Behind Brands, where I talk about iconic ads with Devlina and Saurabh, where I post a video every Friday, where I talk about one different iconic ad campaign and what really made it tick. So these are all definitely great things for people to follow up on.
Thanks a lot for giving us your Sunday, and we've got to learn a lot from you. I'm looking forward to conducting much more podcasts with you.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Absolutely great having a good conversation with you.